Okay, guys, in ELA this week, English Language Arts, we're talking about a few different things: central idea, supporting details, objective summary, and theme. So, the standard that you all have to meet this week, if you look at the very top of the screen, I can determine a theme or central idea of a text and analyze its development over the course of the text. I can also provide an objective summary of the text. So let's talk about what all that means. Determine means that you can decide or figure out the theme or central idea. We're going to practice doing both. The central idea is the chief point that an author is making about the topic. So it's the message. Sometimes you guys have done main idea for years and years. This is very similar to the main idea of the text. Sometimes it's stated in the text, and sometimes you have to infer it or just kind of come to it based on what you know about what you've read. Analyze means you need to study really closely and break down the key parts. Development is the building of an idea throughout the text. And then finally, objective means it's not influenced by personal feelings or opinions when you're representing facts. So now let's look at the standard again after we've broke down the key vocabulary. So by the end of this week, you should be able to decide or figure out the main message of a text and break down all the key parts that led to that main idea. You should also be able to talk about how that developed throughout the text. And then you can write a summary that's not based on your personal feelings or opinions. It's only based on information that you've gathered from the text. That's all our standard means this week. All right, so determining a central idea of a text means to figure out the author's main point. That means that you can look at the title, any blurbs included before the title. You're going to pay close attention to the opening and closing paragraphs. Think about what's the topic of this whole text. And when I say text, I'm either talking about a book or an article. This week you're going to be working with an article. Why is the author written about the topic? Is that to inform me, to entertain me, or to persuade me to do something? And what points has he made about the topic? When you analyze, you're going to closely look at how the author has built his points up throughout the text to get to that big central idea. You're going to look at the body paragraphs of the text when you analyze it, look at any examples that the author has used to make the point, and think about who, what, when, where, and why. Do that on your fingers. Who, what, when, where, why. Think about that as you're reading a text. All right, so we're going to practice with the Three Little Pigs. I chose this story because I figured it was something everybody was familiar with. So I wanted you to see how we do all of these things using a story, because you're going to practice this on your own using the text that I've provided for you. All right, so let's start with the details of the story. When we pick out the details, these are the main points of the story that really, once they're fluffed out, make up the story as a whole. So we know that 3 little pigs are sent off by their mother to make a living for themselves. The 3 pigs decided to build houses. That's detail number 2. Each one built them out of different types of materials. So I've elaborated on that for detail number 3. One day a wolf comes along and wants to eat the pigs. He easily blows down the first 2 pigs' houses, and that should be TWO. That's a misprint there. Sorry, guys. At the 3rd house, he cannot blow it down and is burned while trying to go down the chimney. So we've got all the details of the story broken down into 5 points. We've taken the whole big story of the 3 little pigs and listed the main details. We're still not to the central idea, though. We need to use these details that we've gotten from the story to make our central idea. So how can we do that? I've listed these 5 main points. Now let's look at how we can pick out the main points of the main points to get to the central idea. So I took a little bit out of each detail. 3 little pigs built houses out of different types of material. The wolf comes along and wants to eat the pigs. And finally, he cannot blow it down and it's burned while going down the chimney. So I'm narrowing this down even further from the details of the story to get to a central idea. So let's look at the central idea. This is the central idea I came up with based on those details. 3 pigs went out to live on their own and all built houses out of different materials. A wolf tried to eat them all, but found that the house built with the strongest material was impossible to get into. He died trying, but the pigs lived. There's our central idea. And that's built out of the details that we listed. First, we listed the details of the story, the main points of the story. Remember, we need to get a central idea for the whole story. So I narrowed that down even further to try to combine that into one thing, one sentence that will make this a central idea. Now, anytime you write a central idea, the important thing to remember is that it needs to thread through the entire story. So think about an article that you read with 10 different paragraphs. You're going to pick out the details from the paragraphs that are important, and then when you write that big central idea, it needs to encompass everything from the beginning to the end. So it needs to thread through the entire story and make sense about giving the main idea or the central idea of the whole story. Okay? All right, so that's part of our standard, writing a central idea, and you're going to practice that with the story that you're reading today. But we're also going to go on to part 2, which is I can provide an objective summary of the text. And remember, objective means that it's based on facts, and it's not anything that has to do with your opinion. You're going to summarize the story based on the facts from the story. So the first thing you have to do is determine the central idea. You've already done that. Then you're going to actually fluff it back out and find those important details the author used to develop that central idea. And we kind of already did that to get to our central idea to start with. We're going to be clear and concise and brief because remember, in a summary, you do not write the whole story again. You only tell someone the big parts of the story. So think about if you went to watch a movie and you came back and you wanted to tell somebody about the movie. You would tell basically what the movie was about, but you wouldn't tell them every little thing that happened in the movie. That's what a summary does. You're going to leave out all the minor details and your own personal opinion. That's what makes it objective. All right, so when you're writing an objective summary, I'm going to go through these steps pretty quickly, and you can go back and read them if you need to when you're writing. But you're going to develop a topic sentence and identify the title and text of the author. Here's some verb choices you can use. Communicate the central idea, communicate supporting details, use your own words, and then make sure you conclude your sentence. So the objective summary should contain the beginning, middle, and end of the story. So I'm going to show you the summary that I wrote for The Three Little Pigs. So I went back to the details and I looked at my central idea, and then I wrote an objective summary. In the book, The Three Little Pigs, the author tells the story of 3 little pigs sent off by their mother to make a living for themselves. The 3 pigs decide to build houses. Each pig builds a house out of a different type of material. One builds of straw, one builds of sticks, and one builds of bricks. One day a wolf comes along and wants to eat the pigs. He easily blows down the first 2, TWO, pigs' houses. At the 3rd house, he cannot blow it down and is burned while trying to go down the chimney. Now, what that does is tell the reader what the book is about. It includes all of the major points. It includes the beginning, middle, and end, and it's objective. None of it has my opinion in it. It's only based on facts from the text. All right, guys, so you have now done 2 things. You have read the story and wrote the central idea. That was the big first thing. The central idea is number 1. Your objective summary is number 2. Now, the third part of this standard is to establish a theme based on what you've read. Now, a theme, I want y'all to think about the moral of the story. You probably studied this in elementary school when you read fables or fairy tales. There's always a moral to the story. If you think about the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise and the hare, the story where the racing and the rabbit's taunting the tortoise the whole time, and then the rabbit gets lazy, ends up taking a nap, the tortoise ends up winning the race. Well, the moral or the theme of that story is basically slow and steady wins the race. When you write a theme, A theme is something that applies to your life. It can apply to different stories. It can apply to lots of different things. It is not specific to the actual story that you just read. You can see that our objective summary is specific to the Three Little Pigs. Let me go back to our central idea, if I can get back quickly. Our central idea is specific to the Three Little Pigs. A theme, though, is going to be a lesson that you can take away from the story that you just read and apply it to different stories or to your life in general. So I'm going to show you the theme that I wrote for the Three Little Pigs, and you're going to practice the theme writing for your article. My theme is taking your time to do something right always pays off. So think about the Three Little Pigs. Taking your time to do something right always pays off. That third little pig took the time. It took a lot longer to build that house out of bricks, but he took the time to do that. So it paid off. He lived, right? He didn't get eaten up and gobbled up by the wolf. So make sure that when you think about a theme, and sometimes this is not something that's written in the story, guys. You have to come up with this out of your own brain. You have to think, what lesson could this story teach? If I'm teaching my little brother or sister a life lesson, I could say, hey, remember the Three Little Pigs? That third little pig took the time to do something right and he lived because of it. So that's a lesson that you could apply to your life based on this story. That's a theme. So you've learned 3 different things. You've learned central idea, objective summary, and theme. These are the 3 things that you're going to apply to your writing this week, and you're going to practice with the stories that are in your ELA classroom. So this Three Little Pigs story was just an example. I want you to take these 3 concepts and apply them to the story that you're actually reading this week. Practice writing your own central idea. You're going to practice writing your own objective summary and practice writing your own theme. And all of them will relate directly to the story that you're reading. I hope you guys have a great week. And if you have any questions, just make sure that you reach out to me.